All right. Jonathan Kuminga, the last couple times we've been like, why are we still talking about this guy? I only want to say one thing, which is so I was kind of just trying to figure out the whole qualifying offer thing because that seems like it's the bigger play for him and what people think he's actually going to do is take that qualifying offer. Okay, so Sam Gordon from the Chronicle had a column. And I just wanted to kind of read from his piece just so everyone is aware of how Kuminga plays this. So for the Warriors, the negative thing about Kuminga accepting the qualifying offer is that, for one, that slot is cheap. So I think it's like 1 year, 7 million or something. So from a trade aspect, the Warriors would not have a high trade opportunity with his salary with the way that NBA trades work. So Sam writes, extending Kuminga with a multi-year deal worth more than 20 million annually would give the Warriors optionality in trades if the partnership sputters this season. They would preserve the salary slot and with it the chance to aggregate his contract with other contracts in a deal. That is, unless he signs the qualifying offer. Signing the tender would grant Kuminga an implied no trade clause in 2025-26 and veto power in a potential trade. Yes, the Warriors could trade him in theory should he part with his vetoing rights, but the receiving team would lose his bird rights that grant the option to re-sign Kuminga while exceeding the salary cap. Therefore, acceptance of the qualifying offer would compromise Kuminga's trade value this season while all but guaranteeing he signs elsewhere. So reading that, I much more understand the standoff because the Warriors are trying to play hardball by saying, we're going to offer you a 2-year deal. You're going to make a lot more money, but we want the option on that second year. We don't want you to be able to get out of that unless we want you to get out of that. And so that seems to be the thing that is holding him back from signing the deal with the Warriors. And I kind of wonder if it's going to be a who blinks first kind of thing right up into the deadline. Because for the Warriors, it is so much better if he signs because his trade value will be so much higher than if he signs a qualifying offer. So that is where it stands. And I'm just assuming that we are going to see this standoff all the way until whenever that deadline is.
I also read that he has vetoing power over any trade if he signs the qualifying offer. I'm not
Right.
sure if he said that.
That's what was in the Gordon piece was the
Okay.
vetoing thing. So even and then let's say that he forgoes that veto, the team that trades for him automatically loses his bird rights, which is
Yeah,
which
that
which
sucks.
it would not be great for them. So he would basically be seemingly untradeable this year. They would have him for the year, then he would be a free agent, and you lose him, and he's gone. That is the scenario that it seems that he is using as his leverage for the Warriors to do whatever that they're going to do. So
Is there any compromise? Because he's like, I want player option. Warriors say, no, we're doing team option. Could the compromise be no option? Or is a no option worse than team option? I'd assume team option's the worst for him. So
so
the
like just an
compromise, no
overall
option.
2-year deal.
It's 2 years.
I mean, yeah, and then the handshake thing of like, look, dude, after either this year or next year, we're going to try very hard to work with you and get you somewhere where you want to be.
Yeah, but he's probably not like down for any type of handshake with the Warriors. He probably feels like so burned. Like I think I read like he didn't want to be a pawn in a situation where he already feels like the scapegoat or something, or I read something along those lines, and I'm like, I get it.
But if you think about it, the reason why the Warriors want that trade option or that team option is because that also gives the other team who they may trade him to
That
some
team option.
security. So they would own the team option,
Yeah,
and
of course. I think
and
every
that
team
makes his
would
trade
want
value higher.
team option over player option.
Mhm.
Would always want player option over team option.
Yeah, because he's going to opt out no matter what.
No, that
He gets hurt,
here's the
then he
deal.
would opt in.
Yeah, if he gets hurt, he'd opt in. I think there are like situations. I tried to read a couple articles because I wasn't sure how in depth we were going about this, but I think there's like the obvious Nerlens Noel example where he kind of did the bet on himself thing and then turned
Got
down
hurt.
$1 million, sell $70 million offer, gets hurt, and then signs like for 2 million or a veteran minimum for OKC the next year. Like that's probably something he goes to bed every night thinking about.
The
Is like,
rest of his
here's
career, Nerlens Noel, I think he made 25,000,000 over the rest of his career, but yeah, so that is a loss of, almost 50,000,000, 45,000,000. So,
and I think there's a Ben Gordon, Greg Monroe flip side of the argument where they are able to uh, do what Kuminga wants to do,
yeah.
make the money.
So basically, my opinion is this thing's not gonna. There's not gonna be an answer anytime soon. We're going to the deadline, people. All right,
Can the Warriors do a is there a JK0 LLC that the Warriors can funnel money into?
Steve Ballmer-esque kind of move here.
That's relevant basketball news. Why wouldn't we talk about that?
I
I
just
don't
don't understand it, which is the big thing. I saw Steve Ballmer's. He was saying that it was an actual company that they invested in that went bankrupt, or something like that.
yeah. I don't know. I think it's all probably shady stuff and
I mean, this is what Bill Simmons always says is always done. Like he would always say, like, Dirk in the end of Dirk's career, it's like, okay, yeah, he's signing for less money because he's going to have a piece of the team or whatever. This was when Cuban had the team, and there's always like conversation about that. But yeah, I want to read like I haven't heard Pablo Torre's podcast on it actually, so I want to hear that. But I can't wait for all the pieces that are going to come out because
I really hope Bill has him on.
Pablo Torre.
Second time in 2 months or something.
Yeah, yeah, he should. He definitely should.
That would it completely fits with like Bill being a season ticket holder for the Clippers if he still is, and this story in hoop. Like it would be a great conversation. I really hope they do it.
All right, did you see Draymond training with Jimmy Butler?
I saw him airballing. Did you see that one?
No,
I
I
think he
didn't.
did. He did like open runs, pro runs with like Moses Moody. I think Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Jordan, DeMar DeRozan, and there's a clip where he's posting up Moses and he takes some fadeaway shot and he calls foul and Moses is like, what the hell? Like Moses is like, that's not your game. Like he's trash talking, like that's not your game. And then the foul stands because of course when you're playing pickup, like you just got to respect the call most of the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And then the people are egging it on. They're like, back to Draymond, back to Draymond to post up Moses. Draymond does one of those terrible looking fadeaways, airball.
In this, I guess it was a video or something. He said they're winning the championship. He called it.
I
I
love
looked
it.
at the odds.
They're probably not looking. They're probably what, top 10?
Okay, so what would you guess?
I would guess 7 to 10.
Okay, yes, they are in that mix. What is surprising to me is that the Lakers actually have better odds than the Warriors right now. So number one, obviously, Oklahoma City. Number two is Cleveland. Cleveland and actually the
Yeesh.
Knicks. They're around tied because we're just using like an accumulation of all the different odds. So
I get that
Cleveland,
there needs to be an East team, but I would almost feel better about like Denver number 2 or
Denver's
Houston
4,
number 2.
Houston is 5, Lakers are 6 at between plus 1,500 and plus 1,800. Then Minnesota, then the Clippers, and then the Warriors after the Clippers. And then after the Warriors, it's the Mavericks, the Sixers, and then the Celtics.
Yeah, the Lakers are 2. I'm surprised the Lakers are over the Clippers. But I guess, the rationality is like, oh, they could do another big trade. They're the Lakers.
And they have 2 really famous players on their team, and people like to bet on famous players. So the Warriors are not even really in the top mix. So for Draymond to say that, he feels really good for one, which I think is good for him because there's a lot of wear and tear on that body. And Conrado and I talked about this last week about Al Horford. And if you do bring in Horford, then maybe it alleviates Draymond having to play so much 5, which will be helpful. And so maybe he's looking at it like, I feel good. We're actually adding some players that I think can help us. We have this like 2-year window. Steph and Jimmy are still playing at a high level. Um, I would like someone to ask him like what are the reasons why he thinks this. But hey, this is why Draymond is Draymond, right? He's got
Yeah.
so much confidence in himself. And what's funny is so there's a docu series on the championship team, the first Steph championship team. And so I don't know when these interviews were filmed. It looks like semi recent. Like David Lee is in there and Bob Myers is in there. Joe
What does
Lacob
Steph's
is in
hair
there.
look like? That's usually like the
I
indicator for
haven't
what
seen
year it is.
Steph yet, so I don't know if Steph, but Andre is in there. Glasses Andre is in there.
Oh, this is
Um,
recent. No, I
so
don't
it
know.
has to be kind of recent. And they go back to, or Andre is talking about that team, the 2014-2015 team. And he basically says, you know, we kind of knew that Steph was going to have this insane season, and probably the rest of the league didn't know it. And we knew Clay was ready to kind of go up that next level, and the rest of the league didn't. And then he said, because remember, Draymond wasn't even a starter yet. He didn't
Mhm,
start until David Lee got hurt. And
mhm.
he's like, and we kind of knew Draymond was going to be a really good player, and nobody really knew yet. And so it's kind of cool to see like babyface, chubby Draymond after he gets drafted and kind of betting on himself, explaining why he thinks that the Warriors are kind of on the ascent. That we just got a great draft class, the Harrison Barnes, Ezeli, and Draymond draft class, and so it was kind of cool. So if you're on YouTube, just go to the Warriors page. I think there are 4 episodes. I watched like half the first one. It's really fun. That team is just like what better team to
Mhm.
think about than that team, in Bay Area sports, really. But hey, Draymond's been doing this for his entire career, so as long as he can promise me that he's not getting kicked out of 5 games and he's
Yeah.
going to be there when they need him, I'm good. Okay, let's
I
end the show. Let's
yeah.
end the show with this. I asked you to come up with your Mount Rushmore of Bay Area athletes who you have seen throughout your lifetime. And I asked my dad, and I came up with mine as well because I wanted to see how much crossover there would be on all three Mount Rushmore. So, for context, my dad probably starts watching sports in the early to mid 60s. So, you're talking about, gosh, how long ago is that? Like 60 years ago, about. Um, and then I would have started watching sports, at least as far as my recollection, like what I can remember, around 1983. Like for all three Niners, Giants, and Warriors, I can remember things happening from 1983. So that is 42 years ago. And then you're probably what? Like what time frame do you think that you remember sports and athletes and stuff?
That's a great question because I was thinking about that as you were saying that, and like I guess my earliest memories are probably like 49ers, but even that, I think we're in like 2007 or 8 by now.
Mhm.
Like, how old were you when you said your year?
I would have been 7,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's kinda where I'm throwing myself as like 8, 9.
Okay, so now I'll give out my dad's Mount Rushmore. Now we went back and forth because he kept wanting to put on like his favorites, and I was like, "No, you're a Bay Area historian. Like John Brody should not be on this team. Like John Brody was great, but he's not better than Joe Montana." So we were kind of going through that, but he came up with his list of Willie Mays, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, and Steph. So
He's got to
in
see it all, man. That's just
he's got
all-timers.
he's got to see it all, and you know who he wanted to put in there was Rick Barry, who got the 74 or 75 championship, because that was his favorite player growing up. And so, you talk about Mays and Steph in the same sentence, like that is kind of crazy to think about. But Willie Mays is, a lot of people say he's the greatest baseball player of all time. I don't think people call Steph the greatest basketball player of all time, but then Steph has the rings that Willie didn't have as a player, at least in San Francisco. He did have one from New York. And so then when I thought about it, I said, okay, it mine is
You have like 2 or 3 obvious ones.
mine is Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
Mine is also Joe Montana. Mine is
Oh,
also Jerry Rice,
and Steph.
and then Steph. So
Yeah.
Steph crosses over both of our times, and the Joe Montana and Jerry Rice don't work for you because they had retired before. Jerry was still playing when you were born, but he was, in playing for the Raiders and stuff.
I don't even remember Barry. So
And yeah, you would have seen
was
games of Barry's like
was it like
last couple
05
seasons,
was
like
the
oh
last
six oh
season?
seven. You would have been to back then Pac Bell Park to see Barry. But yeah, he is also not of your lifetime of watching sports. So now give me your four that you gave me earlier.
I think my fourth spot is still like in discussion because I'll start saying it. So it's Steph. If I had to rank them even, I'd probably go Steph, Buster, Draymond, and KD. And so that KD spot for me is the one that could be changed, but it's just like, damn, he was just, the first or second most important player for two championships.
Hmm.
And
And
so I was thinking,
well, the thing that there's no Niners on your list, which I mean, I wouldn't even be sure who to put. So if you're
I was, yeah, I had some names, but my rationale is in my lifetime, I have seen three San Francisco Giants World Series,
hmm
four Golden State Warriors finals wins,
hmm
and three losses at the Super Bowl for San Francisco 49ers. So to be fair, I'm only picking winners. But if I
uh,
had to, I was tossing between Frank Gore, Vernon Davis, and then I was like, I'm not picking Joe Staley. Like,
I mean,
I'm not
Fred
picking an
Fred Fred
offensive.
Fred Warner is kind
Fred
of the
Warner's
current
one in there
guy.
too. Fred Warner,
Kittle is
yeah,
the current guy, but you're right. You're gonna lean on Warriors and Giants because those are the teams that won the
the
titles in the night.
Willis,
And
but yeah,
and
yeah,
whereas I was growing up, the Niners won all the titles, and then the
yeah.
Giants and the Warriors weren't until now. So I had to kind of cross pollinate with my eras to get what I got.
I
But
think
no,
for me too, but I was also thinking Lincecum and Bumgardner. But I think when I was kind of like have way more baseball memories, I think Lincecum was kind of not as dominant.
well, your brother
Um,
would pick Lincecum for sure.
yeah, he would, but that's completely biased. I don't know if that's factual. I don't know if
He
I mean,
had
two Cy Youngs,
he was yeah, and he had 3 rings, though, he was really only
dominant
a
for
big
one,
he
two.
was the biggest part of the one, and then he helped out in the second, but yeah, by the third, I don't even think he was on the playoff roster, so no,
Yeah,
but it was a really interesting thought process because what I was and this is like, some you have a hypothesis, and I was like, I wonder, is Steph Curry the greatest Bay Area sports athlete? And
but I don't think the crossover can completely confirm that because had I been alive, like I think what's like if you do like the four greatest, like you'd probably go. Well, I mean,
it's probably what your grandpa's list was.
it's Willie, Jerry, Joe, and Steph.
That's probably overall if we were to like really do some polling. I would
What
imagine
about
that's what it
Barry?
is. Barry would be on the next 4 for sure, but
Dang, you would. There's no.
I don't think you would put Barry over Willie necessarily because
I mean, even over like Jerry or Joe or
those guys had 4 Super Bowl championships
yeah,
and Barry didn't have any titles. But no, it was just a
Joe.
fun thing because what I wanted to figure out is where does Steph rank in the pantheon? And I think he's right there with the most important Bay Area athletes ever. And
Yeah,
that tells you a lot about his career and what he really means and why. I mean, this dude is royalty out here um, because of that. I forgot to even change it to the Warriors background.
I
Um,
also think it's cool that most of those guys, if not all, are homegrown. I know Willie started in Brooklyn, but you can't do anything about that when they moved to San Francisco. Steph drafted. Was Jerry and Joe drafted too, or were they early?
Jerry and Joe were drafted by the 49ers. Yeah.
Like if you talk about like LA sports, I I wonder how many of those are homegrown, and not to or New York. I'm not, but I just think that's cool about the Bays.
Yeah. And, you on your list was also Buster. And
Homegrown, Draymond, homegrown.
Buster kind of continues to live on based
Mhm.
off of what he's doing with the Giants right now
I
as
think
being
we all
their
hope that Steph
boss.
kinda takes some similar path. Steph's such a business person that I don't think he'll ever take the Buster role for the Warriors, but you just hope he's always, like, around.
Yeah, totally.